Hello, Rob McNeilly here, and I wanted to make some comments about how we can best help people who have a phobic reaction to some event or some object. And I find that in dealing with phobias, just really like dealing with any clinical situation, it's so helpful to remember that we're never dealing with a phobia, we're never dealing with a particular clinical situation. We're always with an individual, always with a person. And Erickson was very uh, emphatic in saying that people are individuals and we need to tailor our approach to the individual rather than tailor an individual to fit our favourite theory. So if someone is phobic about flying or spiders or dogs or whatever it might be, there's something about a phobia that lets us know that hypnosis is going to be very relevant and helpful here. Because when someone has a phobic reaction to something, they focus on it, they get so absorbed in it, and they disappear into it, and we can think of it metaphorically as a bad trance. Well, if someone has a problem flying, they're phobic about flying. Really, in order to fly in an aeroplane, all we need to do is to be able to walk and sit. If you can walk onto the plane and sit and then walk off, then that's all we need to do to fly in an aeroplane. We don't need to control the plane, we don't need to control anything. But when someone starts to have a phobia, starts to become phobic about avoiding flying, then they start to think about flying, everything that can go wrong. They start to get absorbed in that and become more and more into the experience of the potential catastrophe, just like a hypnotic experience. So I'm not saying that phobias are hypnotic, but there is a parallel there which lets us know that hypnosis is likely to be very helpful. So instead of finding a way to treat a phobia, there are plenty of scripts out there that specifically help with flying or spiders or whatever. But instead of relying on a script, which is going to be a standardized approach to something, standardized approaches are fine if you can find a standard person. I haven't met one yet. So if we listen to someone who's got a problem with a phobia, then we listen to how is it that this is a problem to you? What is it about the phobia that is causing this to be something that warrants therapy? Is it lack of control? Is it a feeling of some kind of physical sensation? Sometimes when someone is anxious about something, they start to get physical symptoms. Their heart goes fast, they feel shaky, they feel dizzy and sweaty and so on. And then the more they focus on that and get absorbed in that, the worse it gets, and the escalation happens, and we have a panic which actually keeps the phobia in place. So sometimes the phobia is not about the event, the plane, the cat, the spider, the snake, whatever, but it's about the physical sensations. So if the physical sensations are what is problematic about the situation, then that gives us a clue that we can work and help someone to have a different physiological response. If someone is phobic because they are remembering some past event, I remember someone who said that he hadn't flown for 28 years because he had had a bad flight 28 years previously. So here this man had a phobia for flying, but actually we could think of it as a result of trauma. He had a traumatic flight, and that that trauma was still alive in his experience as a memory, as a flashback. And so anytime he thought about flying, he got the whole catastrophe happening again. Again, I think it's helpful to realise that we're dealing with a person. So if this man had a problem flying, did he have a phobia and post-traumatic stress, or was he just having an experience that needed some help? So that's my invitation. When someone says, I'm phobic about this, for us to explore what is it about the situation that is particularly troublesome, problematic, limiting, that this person wants help for. And if we can tailor our approach to that, then we're going to be more likely to be on track with them. And of course, when we explore how come this is a problem, that gives us a clue. And sometimes we need to be more explicit about this, but sometimes it gives us a clue or even makes it obvious what's missing for someone. If someone feels out of control, then obviously what's missing is a feeling of control or a feeling of accepting being out of control, not needing to control. If someone is having physiological responses, what's missing is to not worry about those physiological responses or to learn to have a different kind of response, physical and physiological. So if we find out how come this is a problem, and we find out what's missing specifically for this person, that is going to give us something concrete, something relevant, something respectful to work with this client. And in that relationship, the client will feel heard. They'll be inclined to trust us, learn to trust themselves, and then learn to resolve this situation. I remember a girl of 9 who had a dog phobia. And she didn't remember, but her mother remembered that when she was about 18 months, a dog jumped up on her and knocked her over and she got frightened. And I had a very lovely session with this little girl. Did I say 9? No, she was 11. And she was reading a book, Pigs Might Fly. And I asked her about the book, and the book had a story about someone getting lost in the wrong land, and she was going to find her way back to the right land. So we had a very nice, quite short, maybe 20 minutes conversation, hypnotic experience, where she imagined that she could be in that story, be in the wrong land where she was frightened of dogs, and then when she came back to the right land, came back home, there'd be a dog there and she would be fine and she would be happy. And it was a very nice session. She was very happy with that. And 2 or 3 months later, she had a dog. And 10 years later, in a follow-up, she still had the same dog. No problem at all. Now, I'm not recommending that that's how you treat a dog phobia, obviously. But that was what was helpful for her. There was another younger girl who had a problem with spiders. And I asked her what she liked to do. And she said she loved working on a project at school. It was something that she really got into. So I asked her if she would be willing to do a project about spiders. And a week later, she came with this sheet of paper with all that she discovered about spiders. They've got all these magic eyes, they've got 8 legs, they've got... She was totally fascinated by the spiders. Instead of being frightened of them, she had a sense of wonderment, of curiosity. It was a complete resolution to that. A man had a problem flying, the fellow that I said that hadn't flown for 28 years. And he'd had a problem driving his car outside of the suburb where he lived. We did some hypnosis and he managed to increase the boundary of where he could and couldn't drive. And pretty soon he was driving wherever he wanted to drive. He then said to me that he'd been seeing planes and he wondered if he might be able to fly. And I said, well, you didn't think you could drive outside of the suburb, and now you can drive anywhere. So if you can do that, maybe there's something there that can help you with his flying. And after a couple of hypnotic sessions, he said, I think I'm ready to fly, but I want to pay you to come on a short flight with me just for insurance. And I said, oh, I think you're wasting your time. But anyhow, I'm happy to do that. So we had this shared flight. He was there, I was there, and his wife was there. And the plane took off, and it was going to be about an hour flight. And I remember saying to him, now, if you don't panic soon, you're going to miss the opportunity because it's only a short flight. And we talked about all kinds of things, and the plane landed, and I said, you've wasted your money. He said, well, I don't mind. The interesting thing was that although he was so comfortable in that plane, his wife was freaking out. So it could be that he had picked up his wife's fear. I'm not sure. But in any case, she said that he now had a problem with flying. He couldn't keep off aeroplanes. I had postcards from him from the US, from Europe, from Asia, and he and his wife even went in a small plane through the misty valleys of New Guinea in flights that I think I would have been uncomfortable with, but he was just fine. So it could be that he picked up his fear from his wife, and maybe, I don't know, but maybe she picked up comfort from her husband. In any case, I just mentioned these three people as examples of how none of them are routine protocols about how to treat phobias, but came out of me listening to them, finding out how come this was a problem, finding out what was missing, and then helping them to reconnect with that. So my invitation is, have a play with that, see what you make of it, and it would be a pleasure to speak with you and find out from you, to hear from you, either verbally or in email, about what difference that made, how that might have been helpful. So thank you for listening, thank you for being part of this, and I look forward to hearing what you're able to make of it.